Way before Reacher, Alan Ritchson appeared in the best Hunger Games movie. As the show's titular character, Alan Ritchson has become a household name thanks to his hit Prime Video series, Reacher. Currently in its third season, the show is based on a series of books by Lee Child. It follows a former Army MP named Jack Reacher as he roams the country and occasionally finds himself solving crimes, usually ones involving mass conspiracies and crime bosses. With nothing more than the clothes on his back and a toothbrush in his pocket, Reacher never stays in one place very long. That is, unless there's justice to be served. Aside from his wildly popular character in Reacher, Ritchson's other acting credits include major roles in films such as The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, Ordinary Angels, and Fast X. However, long before his time as the formidable Goliath that is Reacher, Ritchson appeared in the best Hunger Games movie over a decade ago, The Hunger Games: Catching Fire. He certainly wasn't the star of the film, but he played an important role nonetheless. However, given the movie premiered in theaters 12 years ago, viewers would be forgiven if they don't remember. Who did Ritchson play in Catching Fire? As the second film in the Hunger Games series, Catching Fire is undoubtedly the best. Katniss, Jennifer Lawrence, and Peeta Josh Hutcherson survived the horrors of their first games and subsequently lived as peacefully as they could inside District 12's Victor's Village. Unfortunately, with the third quarter quell, the 75th anniversary of the first games, the capital of Panem used the opportunity to throw past victors back into the ring. With rebellion brewing, the powers that be needed to squash it any way they could. Ritchson played one of those former victors, a career tribute named Gloss from District 1, a much wealthier district than the one audiences came to know thanks to Katniss. When Gloss was a teenager, he became the victor of the 63rd Hunger Games. As a career tribute, he spent his entire life training for the Savage Games, although he likely never viewed them as such. Because he was a resident of one of Panem's wealthiest districts, it was considered an honor to participate in the games and uphold the ideals of the capital. As such, he likely volunteered for the games when the time came. However, unlike Katniss, he wasn't desperate to save a sibling. He confidently chose to enter the wanton competition. That being said, he didn't volunteer for the quarter quell. He was reaped the second time around, along with his sister, Kashmir Stephanie Lee Schlund. Leading up to and during the quarter quell, Ritchson's character makes the usual rounds that every tribute must. He practices, does the required interviews, and converses with the other tributes. Without a doubt, Ritchson played the part rather well. However, it wasn't his first choice. In fact, there was a much larger role the actor hoped to play in the Hunger Games series, which might have very well shifted the course of his career. Nevertheless, things have a way of working out as they should. Ritchson actually auditioned for a different role in Catching Fire. Before donning his sheer silver tunic as Gloss, Ritchson actually auditioned for the much larger role of Finnick, a career tribute who goes on to participate alongside Katniss in the rebellions against the capital. However, that part eventually went to Sam Claflin. At age 30, Ritchson was told he was far too old to play such a character and would likely be unable to break out as a star because of it. That being said, everything clearly worked out for Ritchson, who didn't land the role of Reacher until he was nearly 40. Clearly, achieving star status can happen at any age. Looking back, Gloss and Finnick were seemingly perfectly cast. Claflin is only a meager 4 years younger than Ritchson, but he's arguably better suited for the role. Despite age being cited as why he didn't get the role, picturing Ritchson playing Finnick doesn't really compute. Yes, he's also good-looking and charming, but the role of Finnick had an essence that Claflin captured rather well, something that would have played very differently had Ritchson landed the part. Before Alan Ritchson towered over bad guys as Jack Reacher, commanding the screen with his intimidating presence and ice-cold stare, he made an impression in a very different kind of high-stakes arena, the Hunger Games. Long before fans hailed him as the definitive Reacher in Amazon's hit series, Ritchson stepped into a role that, while smaller in screen time, was part of what many fans consider the best film in the dystopian franchise, The Hunger Games: Catching Fire 2013. Yes, you read that right. Alan Ritchson was Gloss. Now, for those who haven't brushed up on their Panem history lately, Gloss was one of the so-called career tributes in Catching Fire, a previous victor forced back into the arena for the 75th Hunger Games, aka the Quarter Quell. With sculpted features, lethal skills, and an unshakable confidence, Gloss was exactly the kind of competitor who could make Katniss Everdeen break a sweat. And Ritchson? He brought him to life with perfect precision. The perfect career tribute. Gloss wasn't just another pretty face. He was a District 1 champion, trained from childhood to kill with flair. He and his sister, Kashmir, played by Stephanie Lee Schlund, exuded that toxic elegance the career tributes are known for, privileged, polished, and deadly. Though his role was limited, Ritchson's screen presence was magnetic. It was the kind of performance that made you take notice even when you weren't supposed to be rooting for him. Ritchson gave Gloss an almost regal composure, walking the fine line between arrogance and menace. In the cornucopia bloodbath and the jungle battles that followed, his Gloss was fast, fierce, and terrifyingly focused. He didn't just look like someone who could win the Hunger Games, he looked like someone who had done it before and could do it again, no matter who stood in his way. That energy? It was a prototype of what he'd later bring to Reacher. The best Hunger Games movie? Many fans and critics consider Catching Fire to be the crown jewel of the Hunger Games saga. With Francis Lawrence taking over as director and the stakes skyrocketing beyond the arena, the sequel deepened the world-building and emotional gravity of the series. It introduced political intrigue, underground rebellion, and a victor's tour that peeled back the Capitol's glitzy mask to reveal the brutal machinery underneath. It also gave us the Quarter Quell, a brutal twist that dragged past winners back into the arena. This concept alone elevated the drama and gave us a new crop of tributes, all seasoned warriors. Among them were fan favorites like Finnick Odair, Sam Claflin, Joanna Mason, Gina Malone, and of course, Gloss. The supporting cast in Catching Fire was stacked, and Ritchson, despite limited dialogue, stood tall literally and figuratively among them. His portrayal added dimension to a character who could have easily been forgettable. He didn't just fill out the costume, he brought a quiet danger to every scene, making Gloss more than just an obstacle to Katniss's survival. Ritchson's physicality was always the point. Even back then, Ritchson's physicality was his calling card. At 6'3", with a superhero's build and an athlete's coordination, he embodied the kind of action star Hollywood loves, but often doesn't know what to do with. Catching Fire gave us a glimpse of what was possible when someone actually used his physical presence for character, not just spectacle. It's fascinating to watch Catching Fire now with the knowledge of who Ritchson would become as Jack Reacher. The stoic menace, the explosive efficiency, the economy of movement, it's all there, just waiting to be fully unleashed. If Gloss had made it further in the film, we might have seen even more of that early Reacher energy. A career with hidden depth, Alan Ritchson's road to Reacher wasn't a straight line. From his early days as a Quayman on Smallville to his hilarious turn in Blue Mountain State, Ritchson has always had range. He can do comedy, action, and even musical performances. He started out on American Idol, after all. But it's these supporting roles in major franchises like The Hunger Games that quietly built the foundation for his breakout. He wasn't the star of Catching Fire, but he didn't need to be. Ritchson did what great character actors do. He made an impression. He